In a previous video, we explored the relationship between religion and spirituality, asking if someone could develop their spirituality through their religion. Spoiler alert, the answer was, yes, it seems like they could. In this video, I want to explore if someone can develop their spirituality without religion, and more specifically, by exploring science. Let's get started. When we talk about the relationship between science and spirituality, we can take a few different approaches. One approach is to ask how scientific fields like neuroscience shed light on spirituality by helping us understand what's happening in human brains during spiritual experiences. Another approach is to ask whether science itself can facilitate spiritual experiences. In this video, I'm going to explore that second approach. Can science help people be more spiritual? And if so, how? In previous videos, I noted that I'm operating with a broad view of spirituality. A narrow view of spirituality might limit the term to experiences of gods or other supernatural occurrences. A broad view of spirituality doesn't preclude the experience of God or the supernatural, but it expands the term to include experiences that give people a deep sense of meaning or purpose. Experiences that create an awareness of connection to self and others. And experiences that lead people to a feeling of transcendence. The perception that we're part of something bigger than ourselves. I've also noted in a previous video that there are different pathways to spiritual development. These can include bodily pathways, mental pathways, knowledge pathways, creative pathways, and community pathways. For more information on these pathways, check out the video link that I shared in the description for this video. Even in the narrower sense of the term, science can still have a role in spirituality. There are a number of people who, through their scientific studies, come to some sense of God or the supernatural. For example, the American physician and geneticist Francis Collins, who spearheaded the Human Genome Project, claims that his scientific research has been helpful in his spiritual development as a Christian. He writes, "The God of the Bible is also the God of the genome. He can be worshipped in the cathedral or in the laboratory. His creation is majestic, awesome, intricate, and beautiful." But in the broader sense of the term, the place for science and spirituality is greater still. And that's what we're going to focus on in this video. But there are some important preliminary concerns we have to address before digging into the relationship between science and spirituality. We've already provided a working definition of spirituality, but what about science? When we say the word science, what are we talking about? There are some very simplistic definitions of science, and there are some extremely nuanced definitions of science. In this video, we're going to err on the simplistic side, but hopefully not so much so that we oversimplify. Science tends to involve the study of the natural world through some combination of observation, calculation, hypotheses, testing, or theorizing. The natural world includes everything from physical entities, ranging from elementary particles such as quarks and gluons, to massive entities such as stars, to energy, and the law-like regularities that seem to govern the various realms of existence. For example, quantum mechanics and general relativity. Observation of this world can be direct, well, as direct as human observation can be, such as a scientist observing the behavior of a troop of chimpanzees. It can also be facilitated by tools. For example, the amazing images we're getting from the James Webb Space Telescope, or images of the microbial world we get through powerful microscopes. Calculation is potentially a bit unique because it doesn't necessarily require observation. For example, some theoretical physicists and mathematicians argue that the math suggests the existence of not only our universe, but a multiverse, perhaps an infinite multiverse. This is a possible interpretation of the mathematical data, but the multiverse can't be observed. In this sense, we can talk about scientific inference, where we either see the effects of something without seeing the thing itself, for example, dark matter or dark energy, or where something's existence fits other data that we have, for example, the multiverse. A hypothesis is simply an initial explanation of specific observations or inferences. Scientists look at the data and develop an educated rationale to account for it. To the extent that they're able to do so, scientists will test their hypotheses. Ideally, tests will either confirm or disconfirm an idea. If an idea is confirmed, it lives to see another day and grows in credibility. If an idea is disconfirmed, we gain a helpful bit of knowledge moving forward. In other words, we know something that's not true. Hypotheses that are confirmed again and again by various tests and further data can develop into theories, which are broader claims that are supported by strong evidence, for example, the theory of evolution. Having a better understanding of what we mean by both spirituality and science in place, we can now ask our question: how can science help facilitate spiritual development? In an obvious sense, science is going to shine most brightly when it comes to knowledge pathways. science. After all, science tends toward the pursuit of knowledge about the natural world. But there are two important points to make here. First, the pursuit of science itself can be a bodily pathway. I'll say more about that in a bit. And second, the knowledge that we gain through science can open the doors to other spiritual pathways. Let's explore these ideas. I'm going to begin with one example of how science can serve as a knowledge pathway for spiritual development. For this example, I'm going to focus on the most common models science uses for the development of our universe and the evolution of life on Earth. On a side note, here I'm drawing on an entry I wrote for the St. Andrew's Encyclopedia of Theology. The entry was on non-human animals. Cosmological evidence suggests that our universe is roughly 13.8 billion years old. Without going into too much detail, it starts with a big bang. And it all started with a big bang bang! I love that show, Carl. This Big Bang occurs after a mysterious state of initial conditions, followed by a rapid inflation. The universe goes through a period of cooling, allowing for the development of atomic matter. We can still see the record of these events in the cosmic microwave background, which helps scientists to date the age of the universe. After this period, the universe goes dark for millions of years, until ripples in space-time allow hydrogen atoms to gather into the first generation of stars. These stars illuminate the universe, not only because they're new sources of light, but also because they reionize atoms that had been neutralized. Huzzah for the epic of reionization. This first generation of stars provides the foundation for later stars and solar systems. That's because these stars act as nuclear reactors that give birth to heavier elements such as carbon. These stars are also responsible for larger black holes around which galaxies will later develop. Later generations of stars appear, and around these stars swirls a disk of the heavier elements that were created by the earlier stars, and then scattered across the universe when those stars went supernova. And it's the elements in these disks that form into planets. By this process, planet Earth was formed about 4.5 billion years ago. Through a tumultuous and violent narrative, which included bombardment from meteorites, intense earthquakes, and some hefty volcanic activity, Earth became conducive to life, in part because its unique atmosphere was formed. In a way scientists don't quite understand, the earliest life forms emerge. These creatures oxygenate the atmosphere, paving the way for later forms of life. Through the mechanisms of evolutionary development, the complexity of life rapidly increases during the Cambrian period. As life stumbles through subsequent periods, a number of mass extinction events violently directs the biological narrative. As one example, the extinction of dinosaurs paved the way for the flourishing of mammals, who then evolved in various directions. About 55 million years ago, primates arise on the biological scene. We see a shift from quadruped animals to biped animals in the primate species, for example with the famous Lucy, and hominids appear about 6 million years ago, developing into modern-day humans about 200,000 years ago. And through this entire evolution, the richness of conscious experience emerges. Creation spiritualists such as Thomas Berry refer to this scientific story as the new story of creation. It's a meta-story into which all of our religious myths can fit. When it comes to life, and perhaps especially human life, this story is marked by individuals who have their own subjective experience, but who are deeply intertwined and interconnected with the rest of the natural world. In other words, human beings wouldn't exist without this narrative, and we could not be the individuals that we are without the non-human world. Let me provide 3 examples to make this case. First, without the stars producing heavier elements such as carbon and iron, and scattering those elements across the universe when they go supernova, life as we know it couldn't exist. Poetically speaking, we are made from stardust. Or if you're a bit more of the goth persuasion, we're made from the corpses of stars. Less poetically, we're made from star waste. Either way, life comes from the stars inasmuch as the stars make life possible. In this sense, the stars are part of the narrative of life. Second, the shared narrative of biological evolution suggests that humans have a certain kinship with all other creatures. We have a common origin and a common story. We share almost 99% of our genetic code with our closest non-human ancestors. We also share like 60% of our genetic code with a banana. Don't get too excited, most of that's just like cell replication genes. You know, the basic stuff. At any rate, the point is, whatever humans are, we are part of the natural world, part of this grander tree of life. And that's what we mean by kinship. Third, human individuals are not independent creatures. We are dependent on the non-human world in many ways. We need organisms such as trees and ocean life such as plankton and algae to produce oxygen for us to breathe. But it's also the case that human bodies are composites of human cells and non-human cells. In fact, for the average adult human body, over half the cells aren't human, they're bacterial. And without the 39 trillion bacteria living in various places inside of us, primarily our gut, we wouldn't be able to survive. To say this somewhat poetically, the human body is a community of creatures giving rise to an individual. We are an ecosystem, hopelessly dependent on others for our existence. This knowledge has the potential to foster spiritual development among different pathways. With regard to bodily pathways, knowing a bit more about what we are as embodied persons, chemical creatures made possible by stars and bacteria, can deepen my understanding and connection both to myself and to the world around me. As a side note, the very process of doing science can also be a bodily pathway. For example, when my son and I are searching for fossils in the desert, and we find a specimen of a creature that lived millions of years ago, and we hold that fossil in our hands, the very process of digging through the dirt, searching for that rock, holding that rock, can be a bodily spiritual experience. With regard to mental pathways, reflecting or meditating on the story of the cosmos, the narrative of life, or the interconnectedness of all living things can be a source of spiritual development. With regard to creative pathways, when some people consider the image of the world presented by science, they see a thing of beauty. Charles Darwin, for example, argued that the process of natural selection produced life in endless forms most beautiful. Of course, Darwin was also horrified by the violence entailed in the process of natural selection, but you give a little, you take a little. In 2014, MIT hosted an Art of Astrophysics gallery exhibit celebrating the beauty of the cosmos. Concerning mathematics, the philosopher Bertrand Russell wrote, "Mathematics, rightly viewed, possesses not only truth, but supreme beauty. A beauty cold and austere, like that of sculpture, without appeal to any part of our weaker nature, without the gorgeous trappings of painting or music, yet sublimely pure, and capable of a stern perfection, such as only the greatest art can show." To be clear, none of this is to say that the universe is objectively beautiful, or that everyone must find its places of symmetry or asymmetry pleasing. It's simply to say that people can find it beautiful, and in this way scientific exploration of the universe can lead to spiritual development. With regard to community pathways, science can help us to realize just how connected we are to the world around us, to the cosmic forces at work in the universe, to the stars that created the elements inside of us, to the community of life in the shared narrative of biological evolution, and to the non-human world through the bacteria sustaining our lives. In this sense, science can remind us that we are essentially communal creatures. We are essentially connected to others. Given these various ways that science can facilitate spiritual development, it's not difficult to see why the American astronomer Carl Sagan stated, "In its encounter with nature, science invariably elicits a sense of reverence and awe. The very act of understanding is a celebration of joining, merging, even if on a very modest scale, with the magnificence of the cosmos. Science is not only compatible with spirituality, it is a profound source of spirituality. When we recognize our place in an immensity of light years and in the passage of ages, when we grasp the intricacy, beauty, and subtlety of life, then that soaring feeling, that sense of elation and humility combined, is surely spiritual. The notion that science and spirituality are somehow mutually exclusive does a disservice to both." Looking at all these ideas together, we can see how science can provide plenty of opportunities for spiritual development. Learning about the universe of which we are all a part, a universe that may inspire a sense of awe and wonder, and a story that may instill a sense of belonging, community, and kinship, can certainly give people an experience of meaning, connectedness, and even transcendence. I hope you found this video helpful. Until next time.